All right, new video time. Let's get into it. So, what we're going to talk about is just keeping quiet. How did I get to this topic? I suppose I was having what's that word? Cringy memories coming back to haunt me. Times where I should have just kept quiet or not said anything at all, and that I would later regret. I still have to catch myself even to this day. That, certain things that I don't want to happen come about simply because I open my mouth. I don't know when to shut it. So yeah, hopefully by going through some of the things or some of the topics in this video, you'll understand why keeping your mouth shut is a good thing. Now, this is going to be split up into two parts. Part one is really going to be keeping your mouth shut when it concerns with calling out other people, and part two is going to be keeping your mouth shut so you don't dig yourself a hole. Both situations I needed help with in the beginning, and to this day I catch myself slipping up. But hopefully this video will, more than anything, keep myself accountable and something even I can refer back to so that I can tidy up my act. Don't call someone out when they're lying unless there's something to gain from it, or there's someone really close to you and they are making a mistake of some kind and you want to stop it and you want to help them. And well, that starts its own set of problems with that person, and your relationship might go down the tubes a little bit, but because you care for them, you will do so. What happens when you call someone out is that you pretty much attack their credibility in some way, and you damage their own perception of themselves, especially when they're lying about themselves, whether they know it or not. Sometimes they may fool themselves into believing that there's something that they're not, and when you call that out, they get hurt by it, obviously, because now their own self-image is sort of damaged. So yeah, what will happen, the extreme case of it, is that you've just made an enemy when you call somebody out, because you've damaged their self-perception and you've damaged their credibility, especially if it's in front of people. So there's no need for it. You don't need to go out and just make enemies left and right. There's no point. And I understand the reason for it. I think we all do. It's to feel superior over somebody else. I did it, and I felt like, oh, I'm telling you off because I know more than you. But honestly, for the other person, it doesn't feel great, obviously. I'm sure you've been in the opposite position, as have I, and I wish that person never did it to me. Now I'm angry with that other person that's called me out for whatever it is. And the biggest point of part one is, don't correct your opponents or your enemies or whatever. Enemies sound so childish, but I like to say opponents most of the time. Yeah, if they're making a mistake, and I know and it's usually like I said before, it has to do with superiority complex. If you feel like you're better than them, still keep your mouth shut. Don't say anything. You're just helping them beat you. That's all. All right. So I've seen this done. I haven't done it, but I've seen this done a few times, and I'm like, why? Why did you open your mouth and tell the other person what they're doing wrong? You could have let them carry on, trip up, and then you could have got ahead and you could have reached your goals before they did, especially if you're obviously aiming for the same goal. So yeah. All right. So on to part two, since we took care of part one pretty quickly. Part two is to do with how other people perceive you, basically. And this will help really in sort of making friends and point to having good impressions onto your managers or your bosses of some kind. When you talk too much, whenever you talk too much, you're digging yourself into a hole. You gotta know when you've said enough, and that you leave them wanting more with whoever it is. Conversations are a two-way streak, right? So what you're telling another person when you're monopolizing on the conversation and you're saying everything that you want to say, if it's on a topic that you really like, it could be, I don't know, table tennis, I don't know, any topic, and you just steamroll the other person's going to feel like they don't matter in the conversation, or they don't matter to you, more accurately, because you don't want to hear anything of what they said. So, like you would do in a tennis match, one person hits the ball and then the other person hits the ball if they can get to it, obviously. But you let each other take the turns. I think what would be better? Like darts, I think would be better example. Each person takes a turn at doing the throwing. So, that way they feel like they're a part of the conversation, that they are making some sort of contribution to that conversation. And even better yet is that instead of sort of doing tit for tat with the conversation, saying your point and then them saying their point, you probe more of them. This will immediately make you likable because everybody likes to talk about themselves. That's normal. Everybody, right? So if you start asking probing questions, they're going to be more excited to talk. They want to say more. They're going to like talking to you. And by virtue of not saying anything, you end up being the most likable person to them simply because they get to open themselves up about everything they like. So, yeah, there are two examples of this that ended up putting me in good graces with one, my teachers, and the others were my managers. So when I was in school, there were times where I would just sit silently, okay? And like I would open up a book and it was like quiet time or whatever, and the teacher just wanted to mark the work. Like this is after the exams are done and they're doing the marking and they don't want to hear any noise from the kids. Now, I would sit and read my book. To be honest, sometimes I would read and the other times I'd just be spaced out. But the teachers would always have me in high regard and would, like, if there was ever a problem, they would actually help me with it simply because I just sat quietly and didn't do anything. Like I didn't make a noise, I didn't look for any attention. So whenever I did open my mouth, no matter how dumb the question was, it mattered in a way, simply because I don't talk a lot. So if I'm talking to them, that means I'm really stumped and it's a genuine question. Whereas the person that talks a lot, like they think, oh, this is just one of the many things that they've said, and they could probably just ignore it because it's just noise into the ether. The second point, when I was working, it was really weird. Sitting quiet, doing my work, right? Not saying anything. And other times I remember I was in a meeting and it was like a stressful one because we're trying to complete a project. And I was just like, I had it already planned out in my head and I could handle it. But so I just sort of spaced out and wasn't listening to whatever was being said. And then when I had like a private conversation with my manager, she said, she was always wondering, why did I look so calm? And then I don't know what I could say to her. It's not like I could tell her like, hey, I was just spaced out, I didn't take in anything. What I ended up saying was that I was just confident in what I could do, in my abilities to be able to handle the project no matter how hard it got, simply because I had delivered before. So she also had some, some confidence in me. But keeping quiet, like why this applied, why I'm telling the story is that later on, whenever I asked for anything, again, like before, I would be given it. So for example, at one point we get to have 1 day off a week. So we would cram in all our hours into 4 days and take 1 day off. And a lot of people were trying to take Friday off, obviously, because, that's just a long weekend. So because I was calmer, I got into their good graces, did the work, did all of that, and, chose when to, speak. I was able to ask for the Friday, and they were more willing to give it to me simply because I was a little bit more valuable. I wasn't giving a headache. I wasn't going up to them and just talking when I wasn't going up to them and asking questions all the time unless I had tried everything I can in my own power to deal with the situation first. See, that's another thing. Just a side point. Whenever there's a problem, try and deal with it on your own first, as much as you can. You've tried everything. You list out all the things that you've tried, all the possible solutions that you tried that didn't work, obviously, and then take the entire thing, hand it to your manager, say, hey, here's the problem. These are the things I tried, didn't work. Is there anything you could possibly tell me that could probably solve this? And then they will look at you so much better because at least they know now that you actually gave a damn to try and solve this problem before you came to them. And that will get you so far. Another addition to that is that when you keep quiet, you come off as more intriguing. which definitely happened to me while I was at work. People just were more interested in what I was doing and, you know, how I was completing my work or what I was thinking for that time. Now, to be honest, I don't think I'm that like special. I have nothing like amazing going on in my head. I think I'm kind of boring. So, but the impression that I gave, obviously, it made people think that I was having some next level opinion that could change the world or something like that. That's the impression that I got from other people, because they were very interested to know what I was thinking. And that's the next thing, is because you chose your spots on when to talk and you kept it at a minimum, whenever you do talk, it will be taken very, very seriously. So it will actually matter to the other person what you say to them. And maybe they believe one thing, but because you don't talk a lot and the thing that you've chosen to speak about, you've decided to do it with them, they will take it a little bit more to heart, and they may question what they're believing in and may actually choose to change their opinion simply because because you made your own opinion so scarce. It actually matters. Supply and demand. Less the supply, more the demand. So how do you know when not to speak? Well, that's the thing. Shut up for most of the time. When to speak is the actual skill that you need to learn. Other than that, your base level should be quiet all the time. And when you need to speak is when it really matters. So never open your mouth up just for shits and giggles. Do it when you actually have to do it. Do it when you actually have something important to say. And that's how you cultivate the skill. It takes a lot of time, to be honest, because even for me, who's fairly quiet, I'll still get caught up in the moment and say something more than I should need to, and then the conversation gets derailed, and it kind of feels like you've overstayed your welcome in that conversation because you've just sort of gone off on a tangent in a way. Hopefully this video provided you help in some capacity, and yeah, I'll catch you guys in the next one.